What's up everybody? So this is Greg Ferris back here with MyoBrain, and this video I'm going to give you a little more detail into the hypertrophy phase of my upcoming powerlifting prep. 12 weeks out right now, the video I just released, so of course I'm doing the hypertrophy phase for my first 4 weeks. Again, there's no specific, time frame. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks or 4 or 6 or 8. It's very dependent upon your goals, kind of how good you are at the sport. But I feel like most people do really well with like a 4-week hypertrophy phase or high volume phase, whatever you want to call it, a 4-week more general strength phase, and then a 4-week taper, kind of a peak or a taper, however you want to put that. It's a pretty good way to segment your training. In this video, we're talking about the specific goals of the hypertrophy phase, and then I'm going to race the board and talk about a little more specifics about how I'm actually going about it with the sets, the reps, all of those things. Okay, so let's get started. This is my super awesome handy dandy whiteboard. So over here, we'll start over here on my right. The 3 main goals of a hypertrophy phase. So you may be thinking that, of course, the only goal for a powerlifter is to increase their 1 rep max. But the most efficient way to actually increase your 1 rep max is not just to go heavy all the time. And the hypertrophy phase kind of helps us build muscle, build volume, build fatigue. That will ultimately help us perform the best that we can on the platform, right? So maybe counterintuitive that reps of 6 and 8 and 10 can be beneficial to ultimately doing 1 single rep in a competition, but it does work that way. So again, I think a hypertrophy phase or high volume phase is a great way to start off your block or your kind of meet prep, okay? So here are the 3 main goals. The first one is high volume training, okay? So again, it's much easier to get a high volume of training, so you have a high tonnage of work done, right? So just weight on the bar times the reps. So if you squatted 100 pounds for 10 reps, you moved 1,000 pounds, right? It's much easier to accumulate that volume when you're doing sets of 5, sets of 8, sets of 10, than it is in that traditional like 3 to 5 or even like doubles and singles rep range, right? Think about how challenging, say if your back squat is 400 pounds, how real challenging would it be to squat, say 285 for 10s? Maybe not that hard, right? And you're accumulating a lot of volume that way, versus trying to match that volume with say 385s for doubles. It's gonna be a lot more taxing both mentally and physically, okay? So the higher reps allow you to get that higher volume much more efficiently. So, high volume training, we'll talk about the sets and the reps just in a second. But high volume, and with that becomes essentially high frequency, because again, it's a lot easier to get more work in if you're doing it more often. Say it's a lot easier to do a 5x5 on squats Monday, Wednesday, Friday than it would be to do 15 sets of 5 just on Monday, right? That's the equivalent amount of work. Or even say if you did 8 sets on Monday, 7 sets on Friday. It's still a lot of work to get done on one single day. And most people do better with a higher frequency program if they're going to try to get a lot of volume in. It's a little bit more conducive to getting that total work done. And of course, anyone that's trained before can tell you, you kind of reach a plateau how many real working sets you can do in a session before they're just kind of become going through the motions and maybe even detrimental to your technique, right? So if you're doing 8 sets of 6 on an exercise, how many of those reps, how many of those sets were actually really good quality? And would you be better off doing, say, 4 sets on Monday and another 4 sets on Wednesday when your core is a little bit more fresh, okay? So those 2 things are kind of interchange, or kind of always linked together, high frequency, high volume. Now, it doesn't have to be, but usually it is, and it probably should be, okay? And the second goal here, it says mini assistance exercises, okay? So again, if you've read anything that I've done or watched any videos I've talked about, I always mention that specificity needs to be very high, not just in a powerlifting prep, but even in the off season. Meaning that you're trying to get good at squat, bench, deadlift. Majority of your work then should be squat, bench, deadlift, just like any other sport. No one really cares how much you can box squat, how much you can close grip bench, how much you can touch and go bench, how much you can block pull. That's not a part of your sport. They can be used to assist you, but ultimately you have to be good at 3 lifts if you want to be good at powerlifting. So, and we're far away from the meet. Again, this is going to be that 12-week out to 9-week out mark. We can use more assistance exercises. So I'm doing things for my upper body like overhead press, like chest flies, like chin-ups, like chest supported rows. That's moderately high volume, still not crazy volume, 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 12, maybe 15 reps. Nothing crazy. We still don't want it to deter away from the main work, but we can kind of use it to build up some weak points that we have, okay? So I just said mini assistance exercises because it's going to kind of depend on how the actual person we're working with, or my kind of weak points in this case, of what I want to hit the most, right? So if I'm really, really good, my quads are very big, I probably don't need to leg press or do Bulgarian split squats as my assistance work. I should probably hit more glutes, more hamstrings. Like I'm doing hip thrust, I'm doing a lot of glute ham raises for my lower body assistance work, right? So you have to kind of individualize the weak point stuff. But further away out in the hypertrophy phase, we have more assistance exercises than we will in the strength or the peaking phase, okay? And the last one here is going to be a bigger exercise variation, okay? So not just different exercises altogether, say like rows, curls, push downs, glute ham raises, but also variations of the lift, like front squat, for me, conventional deadlift, close grip bench, long pause work, high bar squat, because my competition's a low bar squat. That is really a lot higher, further away from the meet as well. And then as you get closer, you get more specific. You take out the front squats, take out the high bar squats, you're just doing low bar. You take out the close grip bench, you take out the pin presses, you're just doing competition pause, right? As you get to closer to the meet, more specific. I have change here because for this meet, I really want to hit the specificity at an all-time high. So my goal, not my goal, what I'm going to do for the next 12 weeks is start off at every single session with a competition lift. So every time I'm going to go into the gym, I'm either going to squat, low bar back squat, normal competition pause bench press, or sumo deadlift. Every single time I go in and do some work. Now there is a little bit of variation in there. As you'll see, I'm going to do front squats after some competition squats, some close grip bench after my normal bench press, but every session will at least start and will be the priority as the main movement. And again, I've played around a little bit more with having some exercise variation. Even in like my prep for nationals, I think I was front squatting as my main squat on Wednesdays up until like 6 weeks out. So I'm doing none of that now. I'm just going to do back squat Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I think my only variation is actually front squats following my back on Mondays. Okay, so that's the big change for me this prep. A little bit more specificity further out from the meet. Still doing more of the dumbbell work, some of the isolation, concentration type movements, but most of my barbell work should be very specific to the big three in my competition style, okay? Then going over here, last section, kind of two other things I kind of think are important in the hypertrophy phase, and that is building confidence and finding some sort of flow, okay? And again, this isn't as scientific as these things are over here, but anyone that's in like a high volume phase can kind of tell you start to like own weights, meaning say in your head like a 315 squat, once you kind of get around that number, you expect it to be heavy, right? So you kind of slow down your reps, maybe get in your head a little bit. In a high volume phase, such as this week for me, I'll give you an example. I did 5 sets of 8 on Monday, 4x7 Wednesday, and 4x5 on Friday, okay? So I did a total of 13, 14 working sets. I don't even know how many reps that is, but a ton of reps, right, this week. Even this first week of volume for me, I started to really own weights. I started to, again, very light weights for me, 65 to 80% this entire week. We start to really own them, meaning that when you unrack 315 now, it's kind of just like, oh man, this is easy, because I just did 290 for 7 2 days ago. Right? I just did 300 for 3 sets of 6, right? Those higher repetitions to build a really good flow and a really good confidence that you can kind of hit those weights. So that's why I kind of like the higher volume stuff as well. Of course, the fatigue's going to be kind of high with the high volume stuff. So you can't have it high all the time if you want to express your strength. And that's what this little graph is down here about. So hopefully you guys can see this. Right here it says fatigue on this vertical axis here. And on the horizontal axis, it just has 3 letters, H, S, and P. So this stands for hypertrophy, which is the phase we're currently talking about now. The strength phase, which is kind of that generically 3 to 5, 75 to 85% work range type of phase. and the peak just being heavy single, double, triples, volume very low, specificity with movements very, very high, okay? So in the blue mark, we have fatigue, okay? Blue is always fatigue is very high in the hypertrophy phase because fatigue is very highly correlated with volume, okay? And again, that's our number one goal, is to get more volume. Because the more fatigue we build up, assuming we're eating, we're sleeping, having a healthy stress response, the more fit we're going to become, okay? But as anyone who's trained before knows, you don't just go do a 5x8 squats on Monday and come to the gym Wednesday and you're stronger, okay? At least once you get to a decent amount of strength, right? It takes a while for that fatigue to come down so you can express your strength. That's the whole idea of a deload. You train hard for a while, take a week off or do some light work, then you're recovered and you're able to express all of that strength that you built in the 3 previous weeks, okay? This is the same exact thing, just over a longer scale, over 12 weeks. So in the blue here, we have the hypertrophy phase. Fatigue is very high, and this red is you can think of your readiness or your expression of your strength. If I try to max out, say on Monday, after doing 5x8, 4x7, 5x5 the week before, I probably wouldn't be expecting to have a grandiose result. I wouldn't expect to hit a PR because I did a ton of volume because my fatigue is very high. Okay, but right now I'm not really worried about my 1 rep max. I'm worried about building up my strength so that one day, in 12 weeks, I can actually hit a big number. Okay, so the hypertrophy phase, we actually want our fatigue to be high, and this sounds strange, but we want our readiness to be low because they're just tied together. You can't have tons of volume and tons of expression of your strength. Then the strength phase, it's kind of right in the middle. You're not going to be your peak as far as your expression, but you're not going to be weak. You're not going to be super sore. You're not going to be, capable of missing 90%. You're going to be, this is probably where you're going to be most of the year in this strength phase. Maybe 10 to 20 pounds off your best at all times if you kind of did things intelligently. So again, the volume will be down a little bit because you won't be doing 6s and 7s and 9s on all the movements. It'll be more of that 3 to 6 rep range. Overall volume will be down, sets will even be down a little bit, so the fatigue will drop and our readiness will kind of increase. So we'll still make progress here, different kind of progress, more specific progress towards that ultimate 1 rep max, of course, because the intensity will come up. But again, your readiness will start to increase as your fatigue and your volume comes down. And ultimately in this peak phase, the fatigue is very, very low. So right now I'm squatting 3 days a week. Maybe I'll actually only squat twice a week in the peak phase, or maybe I'll squat 3 times a week, but the middle session is just like a 3x1 at 55%. Just something to have me move and recover, nothing fatiguing whatsoever, right? So my overall volume and probably my frequency of the lifts will go down, my assistance work will go down, my exercise variation will go down, and that will allow my overall fatigue to go down. But again, it hasn't been so long since I've done all this work here. I'm still going to be able to have my readiness continue to go up. And the whole idea of a peak is to try to drop this fatigue just enough so that we can have this readiness increase. You can't drop your fatigue too far. You can't just not train hard for, say, 6 weeks before meet, because then you're not going to have the readiness come up like that. It has to be in a specific time frame. Again, this looks scientific, but it's not 100% scientific. And even for people we work with, it changes cycle to cycle. It changes meet to meet. You kind of have to be intelligent with how you go about it. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. Kind of want to give you a general overview of the hypertrophy phase. I'll be uploading another video talking about the specifics of the exercises that I'm doing in this 4 weeks, so be on the lookout for that. I appreciate it as always. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to this meet prep. I should have a couple of videos from my training this past week. I finished off with a 400x5 squat, which kind of came out of nowhere, so very happy about that. And stayed healthy through week 1, so that's kind of what I was nervous about a little bit, but I think we're going to be all right. So, as always, guys, go check out MyoBrainPerformance.com. Check us out Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. I appreciate it. Take care.